On my memo tonight, I'm speaking for the millions of parents across the country who are worried and confused. Confused because of the constant flip-flopping by the Education Ministry on the opening dates for schools. And worried about what to do now that it seems the schools will be opening sooner than they expected. Many parents remember the words of Education CS Professor George Magoha in July this year, and I quote, "The 2020 school calendar year will be considered lost due to COVID-19 restrictions." He spoke categorically and with finality. For many parents, this announcement put paid to any hopes of their children returning to school anytime this year. Planning for school was therefore pushed to a later date, as many parents tried to get through one day at a time. The coronavirus pandemic had affected livelihoods and disrupted normal lives for millions of people. Many had lost their jobs and were struggling to feed their families. Therefore, the announcement that there would be no school this year was, sad as it was, a welcome relief for many who would not have to worry about school fees and uniforms, at least for a few more months. But now, this worry has been brought back to the fore, as all indications from the government are the schools will resume sooner, as soon as next month, that is October. Teachers have already been asked to report to school to start preparing for reopening. Parents now have a much shorter period of time to get the school fees ready. For some, it is worse, because some private schools were forced to close down permanently because of the effects of the corona pandemic. Shule nyingi za kibinafsi hazikuweza kuendelea kwa sababu ya makali ya janga la corona. According to the Kenya Private Schools Association, over 120 schools were forced to shut down since March owing to the sudden closure that deprived them of school fees. Teachers and other support staff lost their jobs. The owner of one private school in Mwea is now rearing chicken in the former classrooms, while another in Machakos says he cannot accept students as the school is no longer in operation. What will happen to the students who went there? Wanafunzi hao watakwenda wapi? Nani atawapa hifadhi? Parents at these schools now have the additional headache of finding new schools for their children, buy new uniform, pay the joining fees, which include several refundable deposits, as well as the actual school fees. Then there's a dilemma for candidates, both primary and secondary. Their fate is also unknown. We have talked about the confusion in the education calendar several times on this show, but this current situation takes the cake. Granted, we're informed daily of the reducing numbers of infections in the country. That's very good news indeed, especially as other more developed countries across the world grapple with increasing cases of infections, as well as secondary or even tertiary infections. There is no denying that children have lost valuable time, and anything that gets them back to class can only be welcome. But the government must clearly spell out how the parents will be cushioned from the sudden demand for school fees that will fall on them. This clear thinking must extend to all sectors of the economy as we move to reopen and get the economy going again. That is why many are eagerly waiting for the national COVID-19 conference set for next week to clear the confusion once and for all about where we stand as a country on various corona-related issues, including the resumption of education in this country. Tufahamishwe, tujue, ili tuanze kujipanga. And that is my memo.